He couldn't remember the last time silence felt this heavy. Sitting beneath the iron pergola, the world around him existed only in fragment sounds, scents, the weight of air against his skin. The jasmine vines his staff planted years ago still bloomed somewhere above him. He knew because the sweetness drifted down like a ghost of better days. Days when he could see. Days when his wife still touched him like she meant it. Now, her fingers felt clinical. Efficient. Like she was handling cargo instead of a husband. The blindness hadn't taken him all at once. It crept in slowly, first like fog on glass, then shadows swallowing shapes, then nothing. Just endless black. His doctors called it irreversible, his wife called it tragic. But she stayed, she promised. She'd be his eyes, she said. His guide. His protector. He believed her because he had no choice. He wrapped his hands around the warm cup she'd given him moments earlier. Tea, she said. Chamomile with honey. The same drink she brought him every afternoon at exactly 3:15. Routine had become his prison. Predictable. Safe. Necessary. But today, something shifted. A presence moved near him, soft, hesitant, breathing like someone afraid to exist too loudly. Not a guard. Not his wife, someone smaller, quieter, forgotten. Then came the voice. Small. Trembling. Desperate. Sir, please don't drink what she gave you. His fingers froze around the cup. The words didn't just reach his ears, they cracked something open inside his chest. Fear. Confusion. A truth he'd been avoiding for months. Who are you? He whispered, barely able to force the words out. Silence stretched between them like a wire about to snap. Someone who sees what you can't, the voice answered. Someone who hears the things she thinks no one notices. His pulse hammered in his throat. Why are you telling me this? A pause. A breath held too long. Because you're in danger. And she's the one holding the knife. He felt the hair on his arms rise. His chest tightened. What are you talking about? She's close to getting everything she wants, the voice whispered. And you're not part of that plan anymore. Before he could respond, footsteps retreated, quick, light, terrified. Whoever spoke those words didn't wait for permission to leave. They vanished into the garden like smoke. Then his wife's heels clicked toward him from the stone path. Steady. Familiar. Poisonous. Darling, are you all right? She asked, voice dripping with concern that felt rehearsed. He didn't answer immediately. He stared down, not that he could see, but he felt the cup in his hands. This simple, innocent thing he'd trusted 1,000 times before. I'm fine, he lied. She kissed the top of his head. Good. Drink your tea before it gets cold. She walked away, her heels fading into the distance. He sat frozen. And for the first time since losing his sight, he realized he'd been blind in ways that had nothing to do with his eyes. He set the cup down on the table beside him. His hand trembled. Somewhere deep in the hedges, someone watched him make the choice that would either save his life or destroy what little of it remained. He didn't drink. And that decision changed everything. Before the darkness, he was untouchable. They called him the man who sees tomorrow, because he predicted market crashes before economists even sensed the tremors. His empire stretched across energy, real estate, pharmaceuticals, biotech industries that shaped the world. Boardrooms fell silent when he spoke. Competitors studied his moves like gospel. Now he couldn't even see his own reflection. The irony tasted like poison. The blindness didn't announce itself with drama. It arrived quietly, like a thief in slow motion. First, colors faded. Then edges blurred. Then faces became shadows. Then shadows became nothing. His wife cried beside him in those early days. She held him through the doctor appointments, the failed treatments, the grim prognoses. She whispered promises into his ear at night, promises that she'd never leave, that they'd fight this together, that love was stronger than loss. He believed every word. But promises rot when nobody's watching. Her tears dried up first. Then her patience. Then her touch. The woman who once laughed at his jokes now sighed when he stumbled. The woman who used to kiss him awake now shook him like an alarm clock. The woman who vowed to be his eyes started controlling what he was allowed to see. She took over everything. Every document. Every meeting. Every decision. Every signature. She spoke for him in rooms he couldn't enter. She answered questions he didn't hear. She made choices he didn't understand. And he let her because he had no choice. She changed his medications without explanation. She dismissed his old colleagues. Without discussion. She rearranged his schedule without permission. She monitored his calls, filtered his visitors, controlled his diet. Little things. Subtle things. Things that felt like care but tasted like control. He started feeling weaker. Slower. Confused in ways that frightened him. His thoughts felt heavy, like trying to think through fog. His memory slipped. His words tangled. She blamed the blindness. The doctors blamed depression. But nobody blamed her. She built a cage so quietly he didn't realize he was trapped until the bars had already closed around him. His empire, the one he spent decades building, now ran on her authority. His wealth, the one he earned with blood and brilliance, now moved under her command. His future, the one he thought they'd share, now existed only in her hands. And this morning, someone finally whispered the truth he'd been too terrified to face. His wife wasn't trying to save him, she was trying to erase him. He sat in the darkness of his bedroom, fingers tracing the edge of the untouched teacup on the table beside him. The same cup she'd given him every day for months. The same routine. The same poison disguised as love. He'd trusted the wrong person to be his eyes. And now, he had to find a way to see again before she finished burying him alive. The next day, he returned to the pergola at the exact same time. His wife guided him there like always, her hand firm on his elbow, her voice sweet but hollow. She positioned him on the bench, adjusted his collar, smoothed his jacket. "I'll be nearby," she said. "Just call if you need me." Her heels clicked away 10 paces down the stone path, never more, never less. Always stopping near the archway, where she thought no one could hear her whispered phone calls. But he wasn't listening for her anymore. He was waiting for the other voice. His heart pounded against his ribs. He didn't know why he felt so nervous. Maybe because for the first time in months, someone had seen his suffering. Someone had cared enough to risk everything just to warn him. Minutes crawled by. Birds chirped. Wind rustled through leaves. Footsteps approached soft, cautious, barely there. Then silence. "You came back," he whispered. "Yes." The voice trembled. "Because you needed to hear more." She hovered just beyond his reach, close enough that he could feel her presence, far enough to run if danger appeared. "You asked who I was," she continued quietly. "I can't give you a name. Names are dangerous for people like me." He frowned. "People like you? People who work where no one notices them. People who clean the rooms others ignore. People who hear secrets because they blend into walls." Understanding hit him like cold water. "You're part of the staff?" "Yes. But not the kind she pays attention to. She never looks at me. That's why I see everything." A rustle of leaves. She moved, closer slowly, like approaching a wounded animal. "She's planning something," the voice said. "Something big. She meets someone behind the greenhouse every night. A man with documents. I heard her mention timelines. And symptoms." His breath caught. "Symptoms of what?" "Dependence." The word hung in the air like smoke. "She wants doctors to declare you unfit to manage your own life. She wants legal control over everything you built." His hands gripped the bench until his knuckles ached. "Why tell me this?" he whispered. Silence stretched between them. Then her voice cracked with something too heavy for someone so young. Because I've seen what she's capable of. And you don't deserve what's coming. He felt something break inside his chest, something that had been holding on too tight for too long. What's your name? He asked softly. I told you. Names are dangerous. Then what do I call you? A pause. A breath. Call me the one who sees. Before he could respond, his wife's heels clicked closer. The presence vanished. But the truth remained. And it burned hotter than anything he'd felt since losing his sight. She returned the next day, though fear clung to every word she spoke. The mansion grounds were quieter than usual. His wife had taken the car to run errands, but the watcher whispered the truth. The errands were meetings with a lawyer who specialized in declaring people mentally unfit. The watcher didn't sit. She never did. She hovered like a ghost, as if the air itself needed distance to carry her secrets. She signed something yesterday, the watcher said. A document she thinks you'll never know about. His chest tightened. What kind of document? It says that by the end of this month, she expects medical confirmation that your mental state has declined. He felt nausea coil in his stomach. Mental state? My mind is fine. Not for long, she whispered. Not if she keeps doing what she's doing. What do you mean? The watcher's voice dropped lower. The medications she gives you, I've seen the bottles. I recognize the labels. They make people drowsy. Confused. Forgetful. I heard her tell the doctor to increase your evening dosage. His hands trembled. He gripped the edge of the bench until pain shot through his fingers. She's not trying to help you heal, the watcher continued. She's trying to make you helpless. The man she married was strong, sharp, powerful. But now that she sees weakness, she's replacing loyalty with ambition. He couldn't breathe. Everything made sense now. The fog in his thoughts. The heaviness in his limbs. The way words slipped from his mind before he could catch them. He'd blamed the blindness. He'd blamed age. He'd blamed fate. But it was her. It had always been her. Why are you risking this? He asked, voice cracking. If she finds out you told me, then she'll destroy me too, the watcher said simply. But if you lose everything and she wins, she'll still destroy anyone near her. Including me. At least this way, we both have a chance. Her honesty cut through him like a blade. She wasn't helping him out of pity. She was helping him because survival depended on it. What do I do? He whispered. Stop drinking what she gives you, the watcher said. Stop taking the pills. Pretend you're still confused, but start remembering. Start thinking clearly again. And whatever you do, don't let her know you're waking up. His pulse raced. She's watching you, the watcher warned. Every move. Every word. Every breath. If she senses you're fighting back, she'll move faster. He nodded slowly. Can I trust you? He asked. Silence. Then her voice, steady and certain, you already do. Footsteps retreated. And for the first time, in months, he felt something stronger than fear. He felt rage. Back inside the mansion, the atmosphere felt suffocating. He couldn't see the walls, the chandeliers, or the staff moving in choreographed silence, but something in the air pressed down on him like a weight he'd been carrying for months without realizing it. His wife's voice drifted down the hallway as she returned home, smooth, sweet, calculated. Darling, how was your afternoon? She asked, guiding him upstairs with that firm grip he used to mistake for care. Quiet, he answered carefully. She served him dinner. Cut his food. Placed the fork in his hand. Every gesture felt like a performance she'd rehearsed too many times. Then came the tea. The same cup. The same routine. The same poison disguised as comfort. Drink up, she said softly. You need your rest. Her fingers brushed his shoulder, a touch that once soothed him now made his skin crawl. He lifted the cup to his lips. But he didn't drink. He tilted it just enough to wet his lips, then set it down with a trembling hand. "I'm tired," he whispered. "Of course you are," she said, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "Sleep well." She kissed his forehead and left. He sat in the darkness, listening. Footsteps moved through the house. Hushed conversations behind closed doors. Instructions spoken in tones sharp enough to cut. His wife's voice commanding someone, controlling someone, threatening someone. He felt humiliated by his own blindness. Not just the darkness in his eyes but the blindness that had let her build this empire of lies around him while he sat helpless, trusting, broken. He once commanded boardrooms with a single sentence. Now he couldn't even determine who in his own home was loyal to him. Hours passed. His wife returned later, checking on him like a nurse monitoring a patient she expected to deteriorate. "Still awake?" she asked, surprise sharpening her tone. "Couldn't sleep," he said. She hesitated. Something in his voice unsettled her. "Do you need another pill?" she offered. "No," he said firmly. "I'm fine." She lingered in the doorway longer than usual, as if trying to read him in ways she couldn't when he still had sight. Then she left. But he knew she'd be back. He stayed awake, heart pounding, ears straining for every sound. That's when he heard it, soft footsteps outside his door. Not hers. A quiet knock. The door opened. The watcher slipped inside, breath uneven, voice urgent. "She's making her move tonight," she whispered. "I heard her on the phone. She wants the lawyer to file the incapacity documents tomorrow morning." His chest tightened. "Then tomorrow morning," he said, voice low and steady, "I stop her." The watcher nodded in the darkness. "You're not alone anymore," she whispered. And for the first time in a year, he believed it. Stood just inside the doorway. Breathing like someone who'd been running from ghosts. She approached slowly, her footsteps barely touching the floor, as though the mansion itself might swallow her if she made too much noise. "She's in the study right now," the watcher whispered. "She thinks you're asleep." He turned toward her voice. "What is she doing?" "Reviewing financial transfers scheduled for tomorrow morning. She wants the lawyer to file the incapacity documents tomorrow morning." His chest tightened. "Then tomorrow morning," he said, voice low and steady, "I stop her." The watcher nodded in the darkness. "You're not alone anymore," she whispered. And for the first time in a year, he believed it. Stood just inside the doorway. Breathing like someone who'd been running from ghosts. She approached slowly, her footsteps barely touching the floor, as though the mansion itself might swallow her if she made too much noise. "She's in the study right now," the watcher whispered. "She thinks you're asleep." He turned toward her voice. "What is she doing?" "Reviewing financial transfers scheduled for tomorrow morning. Funds moving to offshore accounts. She's preparing to close a trust one you set aside for long-term security." His jaw clenched. "A trust?" "Yes. The one meant to protect you if your health worsened. She plans to drain it and move everything under her name." The words hit him like a physical blow. All those years of planning, all those safeguards he built to protect himself. And she'd been quietly dismantling them while he sat in darkness, trusting her. "How do you know all this?" he asked. "Because I've been listening. For months," she said, guilt threading through her voice. "I didn't think she'd move this fast." He leaned forward, hands gripping his knees. "What else is she planning?" The watcher hesitated. "A medical evaluation. A neurological assessment. She's arranged for her doctor, not yours, to examine you. She wants him to sign a statement declaring you mentally unstable." Rage burned beneath his ribs. "And there's something else," the watcher added quietly. He lifted his head. "What?" She swallowed hard. "She threatened the staff today. She gathered everyone in the kitchen and said if anyone speaks about her late-night meetings or her phone calls, they'll be fired immediately. No references. No severance. Nothing." His hands curled into fists. For months, he'd let her guide him through his own home. He'd trusted her voice, her decisions, her judgment. But she hadn't been guiding him toward safety. She'd been guiding him toward a cliff. And she expected him to fall without fighting back. The watcher stepped closer, her presence warm and steady in the cold darkness of his room. "You're not alone," she said softly. "Not anymore." He reached out blindly, and her hand met his small, calloused, trembling slightly but firm. He squeezed it gently. That simple touch felt like the first real lifeline he'd been offered in a year. "Tomorrow," he said quietly, "we start fighting back." "How?" she whispered. "I stop pretending," he said. "I stop accepting. I stop trusting her." The watcher's breath caught. "She'll notice." "Good," he said, voice hardening. "Let her notice. Let her feel what it's like when someone sees through her lies." Silence filled the room. Then the watcher nodded. "I'll help you," she whispered. "Whatever it takes." He exhaled slowly, feeling strength return to his body, strength he thought he'd lost forever. "Then let's take back what she stole." The next morning, he made a decision that changed everything. He refused the tea. His wife stood frozen in the doorway, the cup trembling slightly in her hand. "You don't want it?" she asked, voice tight with something that wasn't quite concern. "No," he said simply. "Not today." Her silence stretched too long. "Are you feeling all right?" she pressed. "I'm fine," he said. "Just not thirsty." She set the cup down harder than necessary. The porcelain clinked against the table like a warning. Later, when she brought his evening pills, he shook his head. "I don't need them tonight." Her breath hitched. "The doctor said." "I know what the doctor said," he interrupted. "But I'm tired of feeling foggy. I want to think clearly." Her fingers tightened around the pill bottle. "You need rest," she insisted. "What I need," he said quietly, "is to feel like myself again." She didn't argue further. But he heard the shift in her breathing, the way control slipped through her fingers like sand. When she offered to help him dress, he refused that too. "I'll manage," he said. "But you haven't dressed yourself in months, then it's time I start." He stood slowly, counting steps, touching walls, memorizing the layout of his own bedroom like it was foreign territory he needed to reclaim. His wife watched him with a smile he couldn't see but could feel, strained, brittle, cracking at the edges. "Look at you," she said, voice dripping false sweetness. "Trying something new?" "Yes," he said. "I want to feel useful again." Her tone sharpened. "Useful? I've been a burden long enough," he said carefully. "You've done so much. It's time I stopped depending on you for everything." The air between them turned cold. She didn't like that. Not one bit. Control was slipping. And she felt it. Later that afternoon, when she left for another meeting, the watcher appeared with a folded sheet of paper she'd stolen from the study. "It's a transfer order," the watcher explained, pressing it into his hands. $20 million. She plans to move it in 2 days. He traced the edges of the paper with trembling fingers. "I need someone I can trust," he whispered. "I found someone," the watcher said. "Someone who used to work with you. He still respects you. He's coming tonight." The billionaire froze. "An ally?" "Yes," she said. "Someone who doesn't fear your wife. Someone who wants to help you take back control." He exhaled slowly, feeling something ignite in his chest. Hope. Small. Fragile. But real. "Then tonight," he said quietly, "we start the fight." The watcher nodded. And for the first time in months, he felt like the man he used to be. The man who built empires. The man who refused to lose. The mansion was quiet by nightfall. His wife had stepped out again, another late meeting, another lie, another hour of opportunity slipping through her fingers without her knowing. The watcher guided the visitor through the side entrance, moving like shadows through hallways his wife thought she controlled. A familiar scent reached him, first cologne he hadn't smelled in years. Then footsteps he recognized from old boardrooms. From strategy sessions, from the days when his words still shaped markets. "Old friend," he whispered. The visitor stepped forward, voice steady and strong. "You shouldn't be going through this alone." Relief washed over him like a wave. "I didn't know who to trust." "You trust me," the friend said firmly. "You always have." The watcher closed the door quietly, standing guard near the entrance. The friend pulled up a chair, and papers rustled between them. "She's been planning this for months, maybe longer," the friend said. "These transfers were designed to look routine, buried in normal business operations. But the signatures she forged are sloppy. I can reverse most of it." "And the medical evaluation?" he asked, tension threading through his voice. "I've already arranged for an independent neurologist to examine you," the friend said. "One she can't influence. One who answers to no one but the truth." The watcher stepped forward. "But she's moving fast. She threatened the staff again this morning. She wants everything finalized before the month ends." The friend nodded. "Then we move faster." The billionaire gripped the edge of his chair. "What do I do?" "You attend the next board meeting," the friend said. "I know you haven't gone in months, but they need to hear from you. They need to see you're still capable." "How?" His voice cracked. "How can I face them like this?" His friend placed a steady hand on his shoulder, firm. "Grounding, real." "You may have lost your sight," the friend said quietly. "But you didn't lose your mind. Or your voice. Or the instincts that built an empire." The words hit him harder than he expected. "You're still the man who predicted market crashes before anyone else saw them coming," the friend continued. "You're still the man who turned risk into fortune. And if you let me help you, we'll take back everything she tried to steal." The watcher's voice joined in, soft but certain. "You're not alone anymore." He sat in silence, feeling something shift deep inside him. For months, he'd believed he was broken. Helpless. Finished. But sitting here now, surrounded by people who saw him as more than his blindness, he realized something: he wasn't broken. He was betrayed. And betrayal could be undone. "When is the board meeting?" he asked. 3 days, the friend said. He nodded slowly, jaw set with determination. "Then in 3 days, she loses everything." The wife returned home shortly after the friend left. Her heels clicked sharply across the marble floor, slicing through the silence like a blade. "You're still awake?" she asked, suspicion creeping into her voice. "Yes," he replied calmly. "I couldn't sleep." She paused in the doorway. Something about his tone disturbed her, something she couldn't quite name but felt in her bones. Her footsteps approached slowly, deliberately, like a predator circling wounded prey. "Are you feeling all right?" she pressed. "You seem different today." "Do I?" he asked, keeping his voice neutral. She leaned close. Her breath brushed his cheek, searching for cracks in his composure. "Tell me what's going on," she demanded softly. "Just thinking," he said. "About what?" "Us." Her breath caught just for a second, but he heard it. She forced a smile he could hear in her voice. "Well, there's nothing to worry about. We're fine." But her tone betrayed her. It wasn't reassurance. It was fear. She stayed beside him longer than usual that night. Too long. Her presence felt like surveillance rather than companionship. As though she was afraid to leave him alone with his thoughts. As though she sensed the ground shifting beneath her carefully constructed lies. She kissed his forehead with lips that felt cold. "Sleep," she whispered. "You need rest." But it wasn't a suggestion, it was a command. He didn't sleep. He stayed awake, listening to every sound in the house. Her footsteps moved through familiar patterns, but tonight they felt different. Anxious. Uncertain. Instead of going to the bedroom, she headed toward the study. He followed the sound in his mind, tracking her movements through walls he couldn't see. The study door closed. Her voice rose muffled but urgent, speaking to someone on the phone. Minutes later, the watcher slipped into his room, breath coming fast and uneven. "She's making the final arrangements," the watcher whispered. "She just called the lawyer. She wants the incapacity documents filed tomorrow morning. Before the board meeting." His chest tightened. "She knows." "She suspects," the watcher corrected. "She doesn't know everything yet. But she's moving faster because she feels you slipping away from her control." He clenched his fists. For months, she'd orchestrated his downfall with precision. But now, for the first time, she was reacting instead of planning. She was scared. And scared people made mistakes. "Tomorrow morning," he said quietly, "we stop her before she can file anything." The watcher hesitated. "How?" "We go to the board," he said. "Early. Before she expects it. Before she can finish what she started." "But the meeting isn't until we call an emergency session," he interrupted. "My friend can arrange it. She won't see it coming." Silence hung between them. Then the watcher nodded. "Tomorrow, then," she whispered. "Tomorrow," he agreed. "She loses everything." He awoke before dawn, heart steady, mind sharper than it had been in months. His wife stirred beside him, stretching with rehearsed affection. She kissed his cheek, her lips cold and mechanical. "Big day today," she said. "I have to head out early. There's a lot to prepare." "Of course," he said, controlling every word. She helped him dress with unusual precision, lifting his collar just so, smoothing his jacket with care, adjusting his cufflinks. Every gesture felt like a goodbye she hadn't spoken aloud. "You'll be all right until I return?" she asked. "Yes," he said. "I will." She smiled, a smile he couldn't see but could feel hanging in the air like poison. "Good. I'll be back soon." Her heels clicked down the hallway, each step echoing through the house. Down the staircase. Across the marble floor. Then the main door closed with finality. He exhaled slowly. "Is she gone?" he whispered. "Yes," the watcher answered from the doorway. "She left early. This is the day she submits everything to the lawyer." He stood, legs steadier than they'd been in months. "Then we stop her today." The watcher approached carefully. "Your friend is already at the boardroom." "Everything is ready." He nodded. But the watcher hesitated, her voice dropping to something fragile. "Sir. You need to know something." He turned toward her. "She didn't poison you to kill you," the watcher whispered. "She did it to keep you confused. Dependent. Controllable." His chest tightened. "She didn't want your death," the watcher continued, voice trembling. "She wanted your silence. She wanted you alive but broken. A man who couldn't fight back. A man who would sign anything she put in front of him without question." Rage simmered beneath his skin. All this time, he thought the fog in his mind was from grief, from blindness, from age. But it was calculated. Deliberate. A slow erasure of the man he used to be. "Let's go," he said, voice hard as steel. She took his arm, gentle but steady, and guided him toward the door. They moved through the mansion like ghosts, avoiding cameras, avoiding staff who might report back to his wife, avoiding every trap she'd laid without knowing he'd learned to see them. The morning air hit his face, sharp, cold, real. "This is the day she loses," the watcher whispered. He inhaled deeply, feeling power return to his limbs. "And the day I finally see her for who she really is," he replied. The car waited at the gate. His friend opened the door. "Ready?" the friend asked. "No," he admitted. "But I'm done waiting to be ready." The engine roared to life. And the man who once built empires began the fight to reclaim his own. They left through the side entrance, avoiding the wife's driver, the cameras she installed, and the staff she'd intimidated into silence. The watcher guided him through the garden, her hand light on his arm, grounding him against the storm building inside his chest. The morning air tasted different. Sharp. Electric. Dangerous. "You're not afraid?" she asked quietly. "I am," he confessed. "But that's what makes this necessary." They reached the car his friend sent, sleek, unmarked, invisible. The door opened. Familiar hands helped him inside. "You're ready?" his friend asked. "No," he admitted. "But I'm going anyway." The engine hummed to life. The city passed in silence. He felt every turn, every acceleration, every shift in momentum. His other senses had sharpened in the darkness. Sounds became maps, vibrations became distance, air pressure became direction. "How many people know?" he asked. "Enough to expose her. Enough to make sure she can't bury this." "And the board?" "They're gathering now." Shocked. Angry. "Some feel betrayed. They trusted her because they trusted you," the billionaire nodded. "Good. Let them feel it." The watcher sat quietly beside him, hands folded, as if afraid her presence might shift the balance of fate. "You don't need to come inside," he told her softly. "You've done enough. More than enough." "I do," she whispered. "You wouldn't be here without me. And you won't walk in there alone." He felt something warm spread through his chest, an emotion he hadn't felt near his wife in years. Loyalty. Real loyalty. "All right," he said. "You stay with me." The car slowed. "We're here," his friend announced. The board tower loomed overhead, tall, cold, familiar. The building he built. The empire she tried to steal brick by brick. His friend placed a steady hand on his shoulder. "This is your moment. They need to hear your voice. They need to remember who you are." He nodded, stepping out of the car. The ground felt solid beneath his feet. Real. His. The watcher took his arm again, guiding him toward the entrance. "She's going to fight back," the watcher warned. "When she realizes what's happening, she'll say anything. Do anything. Let her," he said quietly. "The truth doesn't need to fight. It just needs to be heard." They entered the building. The elevator rose. His heart hammered with every floor. When the doors opened, voices fell silent. Footsteps approached. "Sir," someone whispered. "We didn't know. We didn't realize." "I know," he said. "But now you do." He walked forward. The boardroom doors opened. And the man who once commanded empires with a single sentence prepared to reclaim everything stolen from him. "Let's finish this," he said. The boardroom buzzed with uneasy energy the moment he entered. Conversations halted mid-sentence. Chairs shifted. Papers rustled. Executives who once looked at him with awe now stared with a mixture of guilt, respect, and shock. He held his head high. His friend guided him to his seat, the seat at the head of the long table. The one he hadn't occupied in months. The one she told everyone he'd never sit in again. "Let's begin," he said, voice steady and clear. The room fell into tense silence. His wife wasn't there yet. Good. His friend stood beside him, opening a thick folder containing evidence that would shatter her carefully constructed lies. "There is something urgent the board must hear," his friend announced. "Something regarding the chairman's health. And certain unauthorized actions taken on his behalf." A stir moved through the room. His friend began laying out documents, copies of forged signatures, hidden transfers, secret meetings, medical tampering. "This," his friend said clearly, "is the truth." Gasps rippled across the table. Whispers erupted. Rage simmered beneath expensive suits. Then the door opened. His wife entered, heels clicking with false confidence. She froze when she saw him seated at the head of the table. Her mask cracked just slightly, but he heard it in her breath. "Darling?" she said, voice artificially sweet. "What? What are you doing here?" He faced forward, not toward her, but toward the board. "Sitting in my rightful place." She swallowed hard. He heard her throat tighten. "There's no need for theatrics," she said, forcing calm into her voice. The board meeting today is about your health evaluation. No, he interrupted firmly. It's about your betrayal. The room erupted. Board members leaned forward. Others stood. Voices overlapped in disbelief and fury. His wife's eyes, he imagined, darted to the documents spread across the table, to his friend standing beside him, to the executives whispering accusations. She realized, too late. The world she'd been building behind his blindness had collapsed in a single moment. "What have you done?" she whispered, voice trembling with rage and fear. "What I should have done months ago," he said quietly. "I finally saw you." Her breath came faster now. "You don't understand." "I understand perfectly," he said. "You thought my blindness made me powerless. But you forgot something." She stood frozen. "I built this empire before I could see your face," he continued. "And I can destroy your lies without ever looking at you." Silence crashed down like thunder. His wife's hands trembled at her sides. And every person in that room understood, the man they thought was broken had been gathering strength in the darkness. And now, he was taking everything back. His friend began reading every piece of evidence aloud. Each word landed like a hammer. Every transfer she authorized without permission. Every signature she forged using his name. Every medical instruction she altered to keep him weak. Every staff member she threatened into silence. Every late-night meeting with lawyers and accountants. Every lie she told while smiling at his face. The more he revealed, the paler she grew. A board member slammed his fist on the table. "This is criminal." Another shook his head in disgust. "We trusted her because we trusted him." His wife tried to speak, voice rising desperately. "You don't understand. I was protecting him." "By destroying him?" he asked, voice cutting through the chaos like ice. She turned toward him, eyes wild with panic. "You're blind. You needed someone to manage things. Someone had to take control." "Control?" he repeated slowly. "Or ownership?" She took a step forward, hands outstretched as if begging. "I was doing what was best for the company." "For the company?" he said coldly. "Or for yourself?" Silence crushed the room. The watcher stepped forward, then small, quiet, forgotten until this very moment. "She poisoned his tea," the watcher said, voice steady despite her fear. "She changed his medications. She made him weaker so she could control everything." All eyes turned to her. His wife's face twisted with fury. "And who are you?" "Some nobody who cleans floors." "Someone who sees what you hide," the watcher replied calmly. The board erupted again, voices overlapping in shock and rage. His friend raised a hand for silence, then placed the final piece of evidence on the table, a recording the watcher had captured on her phone. He pressed play. His wife's voice filled the room, cold and clear. "Once he's declared incompetent, everything becomes mine. The estate. The company. All of it. He won't even know what happened." The room exploded. Board members shouted. Some stood. Others stared at her in horror. His wife staggered backward, face drained of color. You recorded me? You set me up." "No," he said quietly. "You set yourself up. I just opened my eyes." Her breath came in ragged gasps. "I loved you," she screamed, voice breaking. "I gave you everything." "You gave me nothing," he said. "You took everything. There's a difference." He turned to leave. His wife called after him in a broken voice. "She'll use you. That girl. She's just like I was." "No," he said, not looking back. "She sees what you never did." He walked away. The watcher took his arm gently. And the past finally closed behind him. Security escorted her out with quiet efficiency. No drama. No violence. Just the necessary consequence of truth finally surfacing. His wife's voice echoed down the hallway as they led her away, desperate and breaking. "Wait, please. You can't take me away." I built this empire with. He. He shook his head slowly. You built your future on my weakness. She tried one last desperate plea, voice cracking with something that might have been genuine emotion buried under years of greed. I did it because I loved you. If you loved me, he whispered, each word deliberate and final, you wouldn't have feared my recovery. That sentence shattered her. Her screams faded as the elevator doors closed, swallowing her protests, her threats, her lies. The boardroom remained silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, the meeting resumed. One board member cleared his throat. For months, we believed you had stepped away voluntarily. We thought your condition made it impossible for you to continue. I stepped away, he answered, because I was guided into darkness by someone I trusted. His friend nodded. But today marks the beginning of his return. The room murmured agreement. One by one, board members approached him, some apologizing, some pledging loyalty, some simply grateful the truth had finally emerged. The watcher stood quietly at the back of the room, hands clasped, as if unsure she belonged in a space so powerful. He turned his head toward where he sensed her presence. You belong here, he said clearly, loud enough for everyone to hear. Her breath caught. Without her, he continued, addressing the entire board, none of you would be hearing the truth today. She risked everything to save a man she barely knew. Silence settled over the room, not uncomfortable, but reverent. The watcher stepped forward slowly, guided by his outstretched hand. What's your name? One of the board members asked gently. She hesitated. He answered for her. Her name doesn't matter. What matters is that she saw what all of you missed, she heard what all of you ignored. And she acted when everyone else stayed silent. The board members nodded, some with shame in their eyes. His friend placed a hand on his shoulder. What happens now? He exhaled slowly. Now, we rebuild. We restore what was stolen. We correct every document she corrupted. And we make sure nothing like this ever happens again. And her? Someone asked. What happens to her? The authorities will handle that, his friend said. Fraud. Forgery. Financial manipulation. She'll face consequences. He nodded. Good, he said quietly. Because empires aren't built on lies. And they don't survive on betrayal. The meeting adjourned. And for the first time in months, he walked out of that boardroom feeling like himself again. Blind. But no longer broken. The mansion felt different when he returned. Lighter. Quieter. Less poisonous. The air no longer carried the weight of her presence, the subtle threat that had lived in every corner, every hallway, every room she controlled. Her belongings were being removed. Her influence erased. Her instructions revoked. Staff members who'd been too terrified to speak before now came forward, one by one, telling him everything. How she screamed at them behind closed doors. How she threatened to destroy their careers if they disobeyed. How she monitored their conversations, their movements, their loyalty. How she made them complicit in his suffering by forcing them to deliver medications they suspected were wrong. He listened to each confession, heart heavy with a pain that wasn't anger, it was grief. Grief for the time stolen. Grief for the trust destroyed. Grief for the man he'd become under her control. The watcher stayed near him, always, never too close, but never too far. She guided him around furniture he'd forgotten existed, helped him identify objects he hadn't touched in months, described rooms with gentle precision. The garden looks beautiful today, she said one afternoon as they walked the grounds together. Does? He asked. The jasmine is blooming. The lemon tree has new fruit. The hedges are trimmed perfectly. He smiled faintly. I remember planting that tree. Years ago. Before any of this. She was quiet for a moment. You're rebuilding, she said softly. Yes, he replied. But not just the house. What else? He stopped walking, turning his face toward where he imagined the sun might be. Me. Her hand tightened slightly on his arm, a gesture of support, of understanding, of something deeper than words. They stood there in silence, surrounded by a world he couldn't see but could finally feel again. Without fear. Without poison, without her. "Thank you," he whispered. "For what?" the Watcher asked. "For seeing me when no one else did." She didn't respond immediately. Then, quietly, "You were always worth seeing." Something shifted in his chest, something warm. Something real, something he hadn't felt in so long. He'd forgotten it existed. Hope. Not the fragile kind that breaks under pressure. But the kind that grows in darkness. The kind that survives betrayal. The kind that rebuilds empires from ashes. "Come on," he said, squeezing her hand gently. "Let's go inside." She guided him back toward the mansion, his mansion, not hers anymore, and for the first time in months, he walked through those doors without feeling like a prisoner. He walked through them as the man who built them. The man who survived. The man who refused to stay broken. And beside him walked the one person who never stopped believing he could rise again. Even when he'd forgotten how. A week later, something impossible happened. He was sitting in the library, listening to the Watcher read financial reports aloud, when he felt it a flicker behind his eyes. Like a spark trying to ignite in a long dead lantern. It startled him so violently he reached out blindly, knocking over a glass of water. The Watcher grabbed his arm. "What happened?" He touched his eyelids, trembling. "I saw something." "What did you see?" "A light. Just a blur. A flicker." Her grip tightened with excitement. "That's good. That's very good." He wasn't sure. Fear crept through his hope. It could mean nothing. Or it could mean everything, she whispered. His doctors confirmed it the next day. A slight neural response. Nothing dramatic. Nothing certain. But a sign that the damage might not be permanent. A sign that whatever she'd been giving him had been suppressing something his body was now trying to repair. The medications she administered, his neurologist explained carefully, weren't just sedatives. Some of them can interfere with neural pathways, especially in someone recovering from optical trauma. His hands clenched. She knew. "I can't say for certain," the doctor said. "But the timing is suspicious." He sat in silence after the appointment, processing what this meant. She hadn't just stolen his company. She hadn't just poisoned his mind. She'd been actively preventing his recovery. The Watcher sat beside him, quiet but present. "Are you angry?" she asked softly. "I'm beyond anger," he whispered. "Anger is too small for this." "Then what do you feel?" He thought about it. "Determined," he said finally. "Determined to see again. Not just with my eyes but to see the world the way I used to. Sharp. Clear. Without trusting the wrong voices." She nodded. Over the following days, the flickers came more frequently. Brief moments of light. Shapes moving in shadow. Colors bleeding through darkness. Nothing clear yet but enough to fill him with something he thought he'd lost forever. Hope. Real hope. Not the fragile kind that shatters under doubt, but the stubborn kind that refuses to die. "What's the first thing you want to see?" the Watcher asked one evening as they sat in the garden. He smiled. "You." Her breath caught. "I want to see the face of the person who saved my life," he said quietly. "The person who risked everything when she didn't have to." She didn't respond. But he felt her hand slip into his small, warm, steady. "You will," she whispered. "I believe that." And for the first time since the darkness claimed him, he believed it too. Not because doctors promised it. Not because hope demanded it. But because he'd already started seeing in ways that had nothing to do with eyes. And that was the vision that mattered most. He realized he knew almost nothing about the Watcher's life. She'd saved him, guided him, risked everything for him, yet she remained a mystery wrapped in silence. One evening, as they sat beneath the pergola where she first warned him, he asked, "Tell me about yourself." She hesitated, as if unused to being the center of attention. There's not much to tell, she said quietly. I don't believe that. Silence stretched between them. Then, slowly, she began to speak. I grew up in a neighborhood where danger was normal. Where noticing the wrong thing could get you hurt. Where survival meant becoming invisible. He listened, hearing pain woven through every word. My mother worked 3 jobs. My father left before I could remember his face. I learned early that people with power don't see people without it. We're furniture. Background noise. Ghosts. But you saw everything, he said softly. Because I had to, she replied. When you're invisible, you notice things others miss. You see expressions change. You hear tones shift. You catch the small lies that build into big ones. He nodded, understanding settling over him. When I came here, she continued, your wife ignored me completely. She didn't even learn my name. To her, I was just another pair of hands that cleaned and disappeared. That's what made it easy to listen, he realized. Yes. She never suspected someone like me could threaten someone like her. He heard the bitterness beneath her calm. You hate injustice, he said. I hate people who use power to hurt those who can't fight back, she corrected. I've seen it my whole life. Landlords. Bosses. People who smile while they destroy you. Like her. Exactly like her. They sat in silence, the weight of shared understanding settling between them. You didn't help me out of pity, he said. No. You helped me because you recognized what she was doing. Yes, she whispered. Because I knew what it felt like to be powerless. To watch someone take everything and smile while doing it. He reached out, found her hand. You're not powerless anymore, he said firmly. Her voice cracked. Neither are you. Something profound passed between them in that moment, not romance, not obligation, but something deeper. Recognition. Two people who'd survived different kinds of darkness finding strength in each other's survival. What happens now? She asked quietly. When you don't need me anymore. He squeezed her hand. I'll always need people who tell me the truth, he said. People who see what others ignore. People who act when everyone else stays silent. That sounds like a job offer, she said, a hint of surprise in her voice. It is, he replied. Because empires aren't built by yes-men and sycophants. They're built by people brave enough to speak up when it matters most. She was quiet for a long moment. Then, softly, I accept. He returned to the company gradually, carefully, like a man learning to walk after a long illness. His friend remained at his side for every meeting, translating what he couldn't see, describing who entered the room, whispering names and positions. The board restored his authority unanimously. No debate. No hesitation. Just relief that the man they'd built their careers alongside had finally returned. Documents were corrected. Accounts recovered. Transfers reversed. Every trace of his wife's schemes systematically dismantled. It took weeks, but slowly, the empire she tried to steal brick by brick was restored to its rightful owner. The media caught wind of the scandal soon after. Stories circulated everywhere about betrayal, manipulation, and the near destruction of one of the most powerful men in the country. Reporters camped outside the mansion. Cameras followed his car. Journalists shouted questions he never answered. He didn't grant interviews. He didn't make statements. He focused on rebuilding, not explaining. But the Watcher remained with him through it all, not as a servant, not as a shadow, but as something new. An advisor. A confidant. A guide. Her descriptions helped him navigate boardrooms he once commanded with sight. Her observations about body language, tone shifts, and unspoken tensions became invaluable. The CFO is nervous, she'd whisper during meetings. He's avoiding eye contact with everyone. The lawyer keeps checking his phone, she'd note. He's waiting for someone to call him. The investor on your left is lying, she'd murmur. His voice dropped when he mentioned the projected earnings. She saw what others hid. And he learned to trust her eyes the way he'd once trusted his own. The company stabilized. Profits returned. Confidence restored. But more than that, something fundamental shifted in how he operated. He stopped surrounding himself with people who only told him what he wanted to hear. He started listening for the truths hidden in silences. He valued loyalty over charisma. He valued honesty over polish. He valued people like the Watcher, people who saw the world clearly because they'd survived it honestly. One afternoon, during a board meeting, a senior executive made a suggestion that sounded brilliant on the surface. Everyone nodded in agreement, but the Watcher leaned close. "He's hiding something." His breathing changed when he mentioned the timeline. He paused the meeting. "Walk me through that again," he said to the executive. The man stammered. Hesitated. Then admitted there were risks he'd conveniently omitted. The room fell silent. The executive was removed from the project. After the meeting, his friend pulled him aside. "You're different now." "How so?" "Sharper. More careful. But also stronger." He smiled faintly. "I learned something in the darkness." "What's that?" "That seeing isn't just about eyes. It's about knowing who to trust. And she taught me how to see again, just not the way I expected." His friend glanced at the Watcher, who stood quietly near the window. "She's extraordinary," his friend said. "Yes," he agreed. "She is." His wife requested one final meeting. From her holding facility, through her lawyer. Optional. He didn't have to go. But he chose to. The Watcher objected immediately. "You don't owe her anything." "I know," he said. "But I need to close this chapter." Completely. She understood, though reluctance weighed heavy in her silence. They drove to the facility together, him, the Watcher, and his friend. Security was tight. Cameras everywhere. Cold fluorescent lights that he couldn't see but could feel pressing down like judgment. His wife sat across from him in a small room that smelled of disinfectant and desperation. He couldn't see her, but he heard everything. Her breathing shallow, nervous. Her fingers tapping the metal table. Her voice stripped of its former confidence. "Why are you here?" she whispered. "To close this chapter," he said, calmly. She took a trembling breath. "Did you ever love me?" The question hung in the air like smoke. "Yes," he said honestly. "Did you ever love me?" Silence. Long, heavy, damning silence. He realized the answer before she spoke. "You were useful," she finally whispered, voice cracking. "When your eyes worked. When your mind was sharp. When you were king of everything you touched. But once you fell." She trailed off. "Say it," he pressed. "You became a burden," she finished. "Dead weight I had to carry." The words should have hurt. But they didn't. Because he'd already grieved the woman he thought she was. "That's all I needed to know," he said quietly. He stood to leave. Her voice rose desperately behind him. "She'll use you. That girl. She's just like I was. She sees opportunity in your weakness." He paused at the door. "No," he said without turning back. "She sees what you never did." "What's port?" "That," his wife spat. "That weakness isn't the same as worthlessness." His wife's breath caught. "She stood beside me when I had nothing to offer her," he continued. "No money. No power. No sight. Just truth. And she chose truth over everything." "You're a fool," his wife whispered bitterly. "Maybe," he said. "But I'd rather be a fool who trusts the right person than a genius who trusts the wrong one." He walked toward the door. The Watcher took his arm gently. His wife called out one last time, voice breaking completely. "I could have loved you. If you'd just stayed weak, I could have." "That's the difference between you and her," he interrupted. "She didn't need me to stay weak to stay loyal." The door closed behind him. The hallway felt lighter. The air easier to breathe. "Are you all right?" the Watcher asked softly. Yes, he said. Because the past is finally where it belongs. Where's that? Behind me. They walked out together. And he never looked back. Months later, he stood in the garden beneath the iron pergola, the same place where the Watcher first warned him, the same place where his world cracked open, the same place where he began to see again. He felt the warmth of the sun on his face, the scent of jasmine hanging in the air, the wind brushing his skin like a promise. The Watcher stood beside him. Quiet. Steady. Loyal. What do you see today? She asked softly. He inhaled deeply, tilting his face toward the light. Shapes, he whispered. Light. Shadows. Movement. His vision had been returning slowly, painfully slow, frustratingly incomplete, but undeniably real. Colors bled through darkness now. Outlines emerged from fog. The world was no longer endless black. Not much, he admitted. But enough. She smiled. He couldn't see it clearly, but he heard it in her voice. And then he saw it, a faint silhouette beside him. Blurry. Soft. Indistinct. But real. You, he whispered, voice catching. I can see you. Her breath hitched. A little, he said. But enough to know one thing. What's that? He turned toward her silhouette, the shape of the person who'd saved him when everyone else looked away. That I trusted the wrong person to fix my eyes. He paused, letting the weight of everything settle between them. Until the day I saw the evil she was hiding. He reached for her hand. Finding it without hesitation. And the day I met the only person who helped me truly see. She squeezed his hand, and he felt warmth spread through his chest, warmth that had nothing to do with sight and everything to do with truth. I was invisible my whole life, she whispered. And you made me visible. No, he said gently. You were always visible. I just had to lose my sight to finally see you. They stood in silence, surrounded. By the garden he'd built years ago, in the empire he'd reclaimed, in the life he'd almost lost. What happens now? She asked. He smiled, a real smile, one that reached the parts of him that had been broken and were now healing. Now we build something new, he said. Not just an empire. Not just a company. But a life where truth matters more than appearance. Where loyalty matters more than power. That sounds impossible, she said. So did surviving her, he replied. But we did. The sun warmed his face. The wind carried jasmine through the air. And somewhere in the blurred edges of his returning vision, he saw her smile. Not perfectly. Not completely. But enough. Enough to know he'd finally found something worth seeing. Someone who saw him first.